How do I fit further? Why am I a good fit? Well, I think my history speaks for itself. I'm a people person and I'm a technology person, and I'm working on and I'm offering the best of both worlds. I'm also, what isn't maybe clear in my CV, is that I'm a trained programmer. In order to develop the computer based training material that we needed to do, I became a computer programmer as well. That's why I can work out most problems. I can problem solve most technological problems if there's computers involved. I'm not a hardware specialist, but I'm a system specialist, and I'm a specialist about the nuts and bolts of programming that goes into the system. I'm not a coder. I've done coding, but I'm at the moment I'm not a coder. I don't need those codes. I'm usually using higher level authoring systems at the moment for my web design business. Right, that's all about me and all about my fit in the organization. The second point is about a model. Who has influenced me the most as an account manager? And I actually have four people. But if I have to, the first was my big manager, my main manager in Old Mutual, the finance organization. But the key person was actually someone that became a mentor. She was also one of my team members, but she'd been there for a long time, and she was very, very successful, and she was loved by the industry, and she managed multiple projects. And for me, she managed my projects. She mentored me, as I've said, and supported me. And she was just fantastic. Her people skills were strong. Her other skills were fine. She wasn't a technological person. She brought me in to help with that eventually. But she was, as I say, a very skilled manager and a project manager. Right. Prioritizing. How do I prioritize my workload? I have a simple system which works for me very well. Um, when I'm faced with multiple projects or multiple tasks, multiple people, I ask myself first of all, what is the must-have things? What must happen here? And to establish that, I look at the urgency of the situation, the impact it's going to have on business and or the people involved, or the technological systems, for example, and the importance. So it needs to be high in urgency and high in importance. Then the second priority is a need to have. In other words, there's no necessary urgency. They don't need it today or tomorrow or within 5 minutes. They need it maybe next week, or they might need it tomorrow, but they're not needing it now. There isn't that high sense of urgency. And then I see that, but it's important. It is important, but it's not urgent. So then I see that as a need to have, a second priority. The third priority is when there's not a sense of urgency, there's the low, that's low, and there's not a sense of importance. It's not really important, and importance is related to the project objectives, or the objectives for the business. In that case, it's a nice to have, and the nice to have things can go on the back burner, or they can be scheduled, or they can even be referred out to other people in the team that I might have, because I'm not needing to deal with it right away, depending on what I'm going to be doing. Um, the other important thing that I have mentioned already is I always look at the impact of my decision. If I am making a decision between two options or two people and two projects, then I'm going to say, well, what comes first? And then I'm going to look at the impact. I'm going to look at the urgency, as I've said, and I'm going to look at the importance of it. And the importance of it is in terms of the goals of the overall project, or my goals that I am responsible for. That's a simple system. I mean, there are other more complicated things and things I do, but and I also listen to my intuition. My intuition is usually very accurate, and I've learned as a manager, leader, specialist, to listen to my intuition in terms of what's a priority. Also, obviously, the goals that I've got, I've mentioned that already in terms of the importance. and the goals for the organization. If I look at remote work, question four, what experiences do you have working in remote environments? I think I mentioned Sasol. Sasol was one of my biggest, and that Sasol is in the chemical industries environment and mining, coal mining, and then they turn the coal into synthetic fuel. We were one of the leaders in South Africa, in the world, to do this, to evolve the technology as well as to do what we were doing. Um, so if I can just say, so Sasol, during Sasol, I did a lot of remote work. At that stage, we didn't have the wonderful technology that we were having now. We used Skype. At that stage, we didn't Zoom wasn't around. Um, and so we weren't necessarily doing presentations over Skype or obviously Zoom because it wasn't around then. We would go to the organizer. We'd send our presentations to another city or another town, another area, and then we'd follow up. We'd be there in the next 2 days, and then I'd go through the presentations. So most of my project work and work was not necessarily in the beginning virtual. My experience now, running a virtual assistance network, is virtual. I'm working with onboarding people who come into the organization. I've got a super website, a detailed website in terms of taking them through each of the steps in the onboarding process. But I back that up by myself as a go-to person, as a help desk and support person. So that's how I'm functioning. I'm leading and managing the organization and providing virtual help. I have done a lot of tutorials, developed the tutorials, PowerPoints, done screen sharing. I've also had, as I've said, quizzes that I've put together, surveys I've used, polls. I've used those as part of the technology that I've harnessed in working with people and teams. I've also loved the whiteboard, obviously, that's available in Zoom and in many other features like Team Viewer, as well as Loom. I've used it before. I don't know why I had problems with uploading it today. Okay, process the process I use for multitasking. I think the key thing I covered a lot of time on explaining the prioritizing now. That is what I use. That's the first thing I use in terms of multitasking. What is that going to do if I've got multiple tasks that I'm faced with? I first of all prioritize. And I simply write it down or I write it on a whiteboard. I put it up in front of me so I can see my projects, I can see my priorities, and I work according to those priorities. Um, yeah, there are sophisticated techniques as well. I've used PERT charts. I've used many different charts, and obviously for the bigger projects, MS Project has been one of those systems. But I find I use very simple tools that I teach my people, which is just using a table inside MS Word and putting a simple project together. People can get confused, and MS Project is very expensive. So I help people make things simple for themselves. I know I can carry on for a long time, but I won't. Um, my past role in multi-tech and technology and working with people. I think I've sketched that quite well with regard to my work in Sasol. There's not much more I can say about that. I've also clarified my role and my work working as a virtual assistant and as a freelancer for many different organizations, um, providing different technology solutions as well as people solutions. And invariably, as I've mentioned, it's been a blend of people and technology. So I have developed sometimes templates. I found that one of the things that really helps me in my role doing running with multiple people, multiple tasks, is that I develop templates which are going to facilitate the process. Application forms, surveys, polls, quizzes, all of those things help me to work very efficiently with time. Um, I've mentioned tables, and there's different kind of things that I've used there. Okay, I want to talk through one of the projects. I think I've talked about it. The project in Sasol was very demanding, where I had 10 teams. 10 of those, a few of those teams were local inside one big city that I worked in. But I had to drive about 2 hours away to the next big town, which actually had the biggest refineries, chemical refineries, that belonged to Sasol. And then there was another one. So I would move around, I travel a lot, and they all had different business. As I say, we had 10 different business units in different locations. So it was very demanding, but I loved traveling. I loved the diversity of work, and I loved inspiring people. I know there's a question coming up now, so let me jump right into that. How do I inspire people? Firstly, I need to be inspired. I need to have a vision for the work I'm doing. And if I have a vision for the work, um, firstly, I communicate that vision. So when I make contact with people, I would welcome them. I would remind them of the vision we have. I'd remind them of the goal or goals we are pursuing immediately, and what we've got on hand. I would ask them about their needs. Do they understand the project? I would ask them about some basic things, how they're doing, what's going on in their life, very briefly, and then move into the actual project. So I feel it's important to connect with people first, and then help them connect with the tasks they have at hand, and for me to get informed and help them with the tasks. So I also inspire people by demonstrating my ability, demonstrating my capabilities, um, demonstrating my skills. And when they see that I can do it, and I can do it exceptionally well, I know I can execute whatever we can do together as a leader. And then also, in my systems and the work I do, I make sure that I've developed frequently asked questions. I'm also giving people at every opportunity the the time to ask questions. I don't just bombard them with information. I believe they must integrate the information. They must buy into the information, and I test that. Especially my experience has been with leaders, getting their buy into the systems. I spent enough time with them because they're the people that drop the projects down down line. If I don't have them on my side, I'm going to really battle with their employees, and providing support to them. So for me, it's important to work first of all with the leadership teams, get their buy-in, and then understand, even if they're never going to use those systems, but they're going to allocate it to other people. I want to take them through the system as part of the buy-in and orientation phase before I drop down into the rest of the organization. Um, then the last question is about an example on onboarding. Well, I think the most current one. I mean, I did onboarding in all the big jobs that I'm talking about, all the big organizations that I've worked in, and in the smaller organization, which I don't want to go into now. But the one that's maybe the most relevant is the virtual assistant network. So what I do there is, I've mentioned I've got a sophisticated um, uh, um, website in which I've put all the technology, all the application forms, all the information they need to have, and the information they need to send through to me. Um, and for managers who will post their jobs, there's information for them, what they need to do, for employers or clients, and then obviously for the virtual agents or the freelancers, what they must do. So I've got quite a sophisticated system, but it's also, I've made it as simple as possible. And then myself as a backup. So I would, after guiding a person with a brief orientation, I guide them to the website. They complete this information there. I look at their material. I then follow up with them. I monitor the progress and eventually make sure that they understand what they need to understand and field their question. A lot of people don't need to actually get any more information. They indicate it on their forms, but I get back to them, confirm that that I've received all that information. So that's the most recent example, and obviously part of that is doing project management and providing any other information that people will need, a newsletter, ongoing contact, and information. Well, I think that's all for now. I hope I've tried to cover it as quickly as possible. I see it's 22 minutes. It's a bit longer than I expected, and I realized Loom was 5 minutes. So, but I hope that I've given both quantity and quality. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.